Hello, everyone, and welcome back down here to the Gamer's Den with me, your host, Jordan, your master of lore and storyteller extraordinaire. Now, we're just doing one final video, at least for now, on running deities. Running the different gods, demigods, and extraplanar beings that rule over vast swaths of extraplanar realms. And the final thought is, it's in how exactly you depict them. I mean, we've discussed so far the myriad different ways of running them. Usually, the fact that they play the long game because they're eternal, essentially timeless beings, and thus even the most chaotic and unpredictable of these creatures is infinitely, vastly more patient and more aware than even the most cunning of mortal minds. And also, we've talked about how even in the most unexpected and bad and most dire of situations, they will typically know how to and understand how to twist things to gain the maximum amount of advantage possible. Clever words, planning ahead, always just essentially being prepared means they're, even when they're caught off guard, they're not caught off guard all that much. At least, especially in comparison, again, to mortal creatures, so mortal plotters and planners and the most brilliant of strategic minds. It's just how it's going to shake out if they survive for centuries, millennia, uncounted millennia. So the final thing I want to bring up and point out with how you exactly you depict your deities. Well, the previous things assume a little bit that your different immortal beings are to a certain extent beatable. I mean, obviously, to a certain extent, maybe they are, but especially if you go back to the third edition book that covered uh, different deities and demigods. I actually think that's the name of the book. I'll have to look it up. If I can find it, I'll put the name or the link in the description down below. But when it when it comes down to it, when you put stats to something, statistics, class abilities, there is an established baseline of being able to be beaten present there. And some of these gods from that book were like challenge rating 30, challenge rating 40 creatures. That's going to be a pretty goddamn tall order right there, trying to beat any of these things. I mean, even the Book of Vile Darkness series that covered the Batazu and the Tenari, devils and demons respectively, put statistics to these various devil lords and demon lords, which ranged anywhere from a challenge rating of 20 something all the way up to 28, 29. And Pathfinder certainly bestiary 6 there when it comes to the statistics for different devils and demon lords. They have them around the range of just touching on to 30. So these are some pretty potently powerful creatures and beings, but they are beatable. Fundamentally, they are. And whether or not you want that to remain true for your own setting or for whatever game you may be running, Forgotten Realms or hell, even Shadowrun features some unbeatable creatures, but some deity-like creatures, I should say. But there is just a vast difference of scale and power. I mean, there's a wide gulf that needs to be crossed, a gap that needs to be bridged that's the Grand Canyon wide and then some. And depicting that can be difficult, but I have found a few depictions that really make sense to me. Jim Butcher demonstrates it in the Dresden Files. I mean, when Dresden, well, I won't specify which deities for those of you who may not have picked up the series yet, but when he meets one, even one that's lost much of their power, just by sheer force of will, just willing it into existence, he's able to pin Dresden down and just prevent him from moving or doing anything, and warns Dresden that whatever else he's going up against down the line, he's going to be facing more. And they have considerably more power through different rituals, sacrifices, and on and on and on. So he did that to try to prepare him. But it also demonstrates, just again, this is a mortal being before an immortal creature, an immortal mind with abilities beyond the scope of human reasoning. I mean, take Muradin, the chief god of the Dwarven pantheon. Muradin he's the world shaper. He forged existence on his anvil, or at least all of mortal existence, gave shape and definition to different realms, different worlds. This is a being that can conjure worlds into existence by beating a giant mystical hammer against his anvil in a forge. He's able to create worlds, forge the dwarves, help to define all these different things. That's a vast amount of power that mortal beings just really don't have, or at least not on that scale. And depicting that can be difficult. There's a similar depiction in the Dragonlance series. Tanis Half-Elven is warning this young knight that worships and follows Takasis, also Tiamat, that however weak and pitiful he thinks Paladin is, or Paladin, however you pronounce his name, is Bahamut basically. However weak and pitiful he thinks Bahamut is, he's still a god. You're a knight in the temple dedicated to an enemy god. No matter what you think you're capable of, this is a god who can smite you and wipe you from existence with the barest hint of a thought. And that, getting that to come across, especially if you have it in your head that these are the abilities of these deities, that's on paper here, it's in this book with all these different class abilities and different attributes ascribed to them, that's to a certain, it's limiting. You are assigning defined numbers, and those numbers mean that there are limits to their powers, which, again, for the purposes of a game, that can make a certain amount of sense, but maybe you don't want that. Maybe you don't want the gods to be beatable. Well, just re-emphasize for the players, when a deity shows up, when one of these beings shows up, there's this sense of dread, awe, terror, joy, just the extremes of passions. Whatever these gods, whatever these beings represent, whatever their portfolios are, whatever emotions that they draw power and sustenance from, those things should be automatically expressed and filling the players. Now, maybe give them a will save, or some kind of a save, whatever roll needs to happen to give them a chance to maybe not immediately drop in supplication and begin worshiping these beings once they make themselves manifest. Make them not immediately quail or quake in fear, or just exult in this divine presence, this overwhelming presence of just raw power made manifest. Give them a chance to maybe stand up, but even in the face of their successes on any of these rolls or checks, just make it clear in no uncertain terms that just being in the presence of these beings is an otherworldly experience. It is something fundamentally life-altering. These are beings who can twist the skein of fate, who can alter another being's destiny just with a flick of their fingers, or in the case of Asmodeus, just the simple signing of a contract. They can radically alter the fate of nations, entire worlds, and they're right here in front of you. They are standing here before you in all of their horrific, terrible, brilliantly joyous glory. That's what's before you right now. That is the overwhelming presence in front of you. And if they do fail, they drop down right there, get to their knees, or dance in madness, or whatever is appropriate for the deity before them, they begin doing that of their as much of their own free will as just the being under the influence of such a powerful presence that embodies these different things. Um, Really, there's no. I like to do a mix of both myself, honestly. I don't mind these beings being within the realm of possibility of being defeated, but that possibility, if that's going to be the route that the players want to take their characters on, then it's going to be the entirety of the campaign arcs. This is what they're going to be focusing on. The different adventures are going to be all about putting themselves in a position where they can maybe defeat a god. I mean, that's a grandiose epic in and of itself. I mean, you're planning on taking these characters beyond the constraints of stopping somewhere around level 20. You're going level 25, level 30. You're harnessing and gathering artifacts that can help to either tear down a god's defenses or just open up or pierce through whatever defenses they have and just make them vulnerable even for the briefest of moments to the players, for the few minutes that they can possibly scrape out of this. They're going to gather allies. They're going to make plans and bargains with other powerful beings that can send their own armies out to distract and hold down this other god's armies, so that the players don't have to fight through the limitless multitudes that would otherwise be in their way, manning the defenses of these massive, impenetrable fortresses, entire realms of existence that would otherwise rise up against them, stand in their way as these impenetrable barriers. That all can start to melt away a little bit as the players make these bargains, gather these tools, advance their own abilities to the point where maybe, just maybe, one of them can strike down a god. But again, that's the focus of an entire campaign, an epic level campaign. And really, I mean, you're in that case, you're already starting off with level 17, level 18 characters, which, I mean, fun in and of itself. But, I dread to think taking a character from level 1 up to level 30. That would be such a long campaign, but a good story, several good stories. But, yeah, when you throw these beings at the players, even some of the greater demons and greater devils, I mean, a pit fiend, a Balor, these different creatures are incredibly powerful in and of themselves. Maybe they're not automatically a threat to gods, but they certainly are a threat to their designs and plans. They can challenge some of the greatest champions, some of the greatest creatures that serve other deities. They're a threat, they're a challenge, and really being in their presence should inspire dread. And some of them have auras that do that, but even if the players succeed, they should understand they're up against something that has seen incredible amounts of combat. They've seen entire worlds of blood spilled. They've consumed worlds. They have condemned worlds to being pulled into the abyss or into the nine hells to be picked apart and torn apart for power. If they're going up against some of the greatest solars, serving the gods of heaven, the seven realms of Mount Celestia, all these different upper planes. These are planes that have put to torch some of the bleakest, blackest worlds of the most vile darkness. These are beings that have waged endless war in the Blood War against the Tanari, against demons, and have fought to stave off the corruption of the devils from the nine hells. And all the different planar creatures between good and evil, they've all done combat for limitless amounts of time. That's what you should depict and throw at your players, on top of the fact that, again, these are immortal, timeless creatures that have seen and done everything, done battle with so many different beings. So, depicting that can be tricky. Getting into that headspace can be tricky, but, I mean, it can be so much fun and very rewarding. I can think of a couple other examples off the top of my head, but really, go and research a little bit for yourself. Learn some of these different lores and legends of gods from our own world. I mean, the story of Odin losing trading his eye to gain his magic, gaining his spear Gungnir, Loki birthing Hela, and also uh, now I can't remember the wolf's name. It'll come to me later. But in any case, these different myths and lores are absolutely incredible and can help give you ideas and help fuel that own creative spark that you have there and just flare it up into something bright and beautiful, something horrifically terrible and chilling. And honestly, that's one of the greatest things about playing these games. Again, I have a preference for Pathfinder, but I do enjoy Shadowrun as well, and I've played a variety of other games that have just been absolutely incredible with the different friends and family that I have and have made along the way. But I'd love to hear some of your own stories, your own thoughts and ideas on running deities. Please, please, please go down below in the comments, share your thoughts, share stories, share ideas. I love engaging in all that. And if you did enjoy today's video, then hell, why not go down there and hit the like button and let me know in the comments down below as well. And if you did enjoy today's content, then there's going to be a few more things popping up right over here that you may also enjoy. But if this has been your final stop for the day, then you know what? Thank you so much for joining us here. I've been your host, Jordan, your master of lore and storyteller extraordinaire. Thank you so much for your time, and you have yourselves a good night.